Hello, welcome. My name is Jason Day. I'm a product designer at Atomic Robot, and today with me is Jonathan.
Hello, yeah, my name's Jonathan, and I am an iOS developer here at Atomic Robot.
Awesome, awesome. Today, we just wanted to walk you through how to make some what we are calling a fancy button. So this is what we're going to make. Three different states here, just kind of the active state, press state, and disabled state once the user has pressed this call to action. Also, we often refer to them as CTAs. I'm going to go ahead and jump into it. So I've already pulled out this font, this sentence, and I'm just going to make a button right out of this word, this call to action here. And so I'm going to grab the chevron here, and you can just click it and grab like that. And I'm going to select both of these and did Shift A to do a auto layout. And we're going to name it because that's what we do. In design, we name everything. We're going to call it Fancy Button. And over here in our side panel, I'm just going to change the padding there to 8. And we can center that with this little auto layout box there. And we're going to add a little bit of padding around the sides. 16 there, and let's try 16 top and bottom. And we can just do a simple little fill, and we're just going to use this Atomic Robot Red. And let's put a little bit of rounded edges on it just to give it some fancy looks. And you can see we have this like weird kind of stroke thing going on the bottom to give it like a sense of depth. And we can't see that now when I put it on there because the background's black, but that's all right. We'll see it in a minute when we make our variants. So we're going to do a custom one, and we're going to do bottom. Let's do, I think we did 16. And then on the sides, we are going to do 2, and we'll see how that looks. Oh, I forgot to put them on the outside, I think I did. Let's see, what did I do here? Outside. Yep. All right, so now...
Hey, Jason, hold on, I'm going to stop you. Can you tell me really quick again what the paddings are between the text, top, bottom, and...
Yep. So the bottom padding, the padding around the actual button words and...
Yes.
Okay, so we have, it's 16 and 16 all the way around.
Okay, so on every side it's just 16?
Yep, 16
okay.
and 16. And then I was adding a stroke, that's what I was talking about then. I was miscalling it padding. And then for the button, we're going to turn it into a component by tapping Option-Command-K. And we magically have a component, and then we're going to add a variant to that. And I'm going to go ahead and turn this variant set into auto layout so I can add some additional padding around our buttons so we can see them better. And we're going to make this an interactive component so we can show you what that looks like when it's all connected. And I'm going to change the background color to my variant set so we can see it a little bit better. Now you can see the little border we've added. So to talk us through kind of where you're at in this stage, I see you're already like just coding it up.
Yeah, let's go back. So I'm using Xcode, which is the primary developer tool that anyone who wants to develop any sort of app for your iPhone, iPad, Mac, CarPlay, whatever will use. So this is the tool that we use. There's other tools that are good for prototyping, but I'm comfortable in Xcode. I'm using SwiftUI, which is kind of the latest toolkit provided by Apple. One of the great benefits of SwiftUI is that you get live updates over here. You can see my simulator. You can, as I change things. So if I get rid of this font, you can see that my preview updates immediately. So when developing UI components like this, I always go to SwiftUI first because it's just hands down, it's great. And so what I've done, excuse me, SwiftUI gives us a number of components out of the box. One of them is just a regular button, which you've seen thousands of times just going through iOS. But what we can do is we can create custom button styles. And so that's what I'm doing here, because as a developer, when I look at this design, I see a button and I want to use what the operating system gives us, which is the ability to tap on it and to give it a pressed state and to allow it to become enabled or disabled. We get all that stuff for free, and so I like to use as much of that as possible. And so with this particular component, all I'm going to do is create a style. And as I look at this, I see the button, and then I see the atomic robot orange behind it is like a background. And then I see that other, you're calling it a stroke or a border. I just see another background rectangle. And so a couple of the first things I would do, you can see I've created this button style, and I've created, it's called a horizontal stack. And I've just taken the text label and I've lined it up next to an image. So we get our call to action button, and then I've applied a font and a bold styling. I know we have custom fonts, but we're not going to touch on that today, I don't think. So this is what I've done so far. My next step will be to start building these background rectangles to give it some color, but I need the hex values of those.
Okay. Yeah.
So, if you want, do you want to just give them to me, or what do we call them? Or I can take Figma over.
I can tell you what they are.
All right, so let's do the primary. What do we call that? Primary? Do we have an atomic robot orange, or is there a name for that?
Yeah, it's called primary atomic.
Primary atomic. And so another thing, especially when using Figma, I always try and name colors and things for the most part the same as the designers do, because it helps with communication between the dev team and the design team. When you're like, oh, we're using primary atomic, and I'm like, what's that? I named it atomic orange or whatever. So what's the hex value for that one?
D24628.
Okay, perfect.
Yay.
And then this XC assets is something that Xcode gives us. It's a way to kind of put all of your image assets and color assets in one place so that you can access them throughout your code. So I know there's a couple other colors. What do we call the black one there, or the dark one?
Atomic neutron.
N-E-U-T-R-O-N. Okay, and what's that one?
I'm looking for it. That one is... Oh, here we go. It is 101C1D. Yay.
Okay. And then I think there was one or two more.
Well, we have white, which is
White?
you're right. The pressed state color. I don't have a name for that one yet, but what I'll do is I'll go ahead and make a color style for it. And we'll call it, we'll call it, I'm going to call it secondary atomic. If I could spell.
The other thing that's really nice about using XC assets here is if your app supports dark mode, you're able to supply light and dark mode colors, so that if you're in your app and you're using things like primary or secondary, you can have those dark mode versions, and then as the user changes their phone settings, it will automatically update for you. It's super easy.
Nice.
And so the hex value of secondary atomic,
AE2C10.
okay.
Booyah.
Press state, and then is the disabled state, does that have its own button, or is that an opacity?
That is also a new color, and I will make that disabled atomic.
Okay.
Perfect. And then that color is CFA9A1.
CFA9A1?
Yep, that looks like the right color.
Great. Okay, cool.
Awesome. Okay. So I'm going to jump back on my second variant here. And by the way, thanks for that explanation of Xcode and everything else you're reviewing. It was pretty insightful.
Yeah.
So what I did for this one, I'm not going to reinvent the wheel. That's why I keep these things I made up here so I can don't have to rethink it all over again. So you can see my outside edges were 4. The top stroke was 12, bottom 2. So I'm just going to recreate that here. So 4, 4, 12, and 2. And there you have it. It's pressed. And we're going to change that to the color style we just made. Where did it go? Oh, there it is. So secondary atomic. And, I did not. I don't think I did that color right. Interesting. Maybe I did. Oh, I think I had the wrong thing selected. That's my bad. There we go. So now I'm going to change that to the white color. Disabled. Call to action. Actually, that is mono 200. I'm going to change it to mono 200. The pressed. That's another color I may need to call out to you there. So we have like a grayscale in our design system of colors, and it's called mono 200, and I can give you that hex code, which is E5E9EB. Yeah.
We call it mono 200, you said?
Mono 200, you got it.
And normally, as a developer, I would just inspect the Figma designs, but we've got a lot of moving parts with screen recordings here, and so
Just a little bit.
there's less chance of error, I think, if you just give it to me.
Exactly. All right. So walk us through kind of what you're doing now.
Yeah, so now what I'm doing is I'm pulling the button states from the configuration. We have this object called configuration that describes the state of the button. And so what I need to know is whether or not it's pressed or not. And so there's a couple ways I could go about doing this, but what I am going to do is I'm going to create these variables, and the variables are going to be computed based on the enabled and or pressed state of the button. And so the first thing I'm doing is I'm listening for the press state of this button to change, and I'm going to create a new it's called a state variable, which in SwiftUI is the only kind of thing that's allowed to be mutated or modified. And I'm just going to call it is pressed, and be false by default. And then down here, I'm listening for that to be changed, and I'm going to set it to the new value. And then I was going to compute my background color here. So we've got a couple things. I guess we have 3 different background colors. It's going to be based on whether or not the button is enabled or disabled. So we want to make sure it's enabled. Otherwise, we're going to return, we named it, what did we name it? We named it secondary atomic. No, that's not true. That's the wrong one. We want mono 200. Nope, just kidding. Disabled atomic. I was going, you know what? There's only 5. I was going to get there eventually. Disabled atomic. And so basically what this line of code is saying, if the button is not enabled, return the disabled state. Otherwise, if the button is pressed, return, do this, color. If it's pressed, look again, secondary atomic. And just of note, if I was building out an app in an actual style guide, I wouldn't be naming the colors here like this because it's prone to error, and we're probably going to reuse them. So I would create some other files in my app that would make it easier to get these colors.
That makes sense.
Primary atomic. And then Okay, so now we have a background color, and we're gonna fill this rectangle with the whoops. Okay, so then I've set my padding, and this is not correct right now. I've created the button, and then I've set the padding manually on all four sides because I think it's going to change, unless I'm incorrect here, but we can circle back to that.
Okay.
And so now I've created a background, a rounded rectangle, which, did we talk about the corner radius? I believe it's 8.
I mentioned it. I think I did. You know what? The original one I did is 4, and the one I'm doing now is 4. So I think that's what we got going on.
No problem. Okay, so now I need to figure out, oh, you know what? It's because I need to change these. Oops.
Oh, yeah.
Leading and trailing. So what happens when you copy paste? Sometimes you get into trouble. Okay, so I've created, so now the only thing we're missing is the font color, which also will change.
Yes.
So I'm going to create another, we'll call it foreground color because that's what we call it.
Okay.
And then that is only going to rely on the press state. So if it's press, going to be, that was our mono 200.
You get it.
Otherwise, it's just going to be white.
Yeah. Perfect.
And we will set that here to foreground color. Now it's going to be really subtle.
Look at that beautiful button.
If we press, you can see the state is changing.
I like it.
So that's pretty fun.
Yeah.
And then I guess the next thing for me is to start working on this. In my developer mind, it's another rectangle that will go behind the orange rectangle.
Okay. Yeah.
So I don't know if you want me to talk through that.
Yeah. Let me just walk through my naming conventions real quick, and I will shoot it over to you. So the first button we made, Figma just defaults it to default. So I'm just going to call it active because it's an active button. And the second one, Figma defaults it to variant 2. So I'm just going to call it pressed. And so it says property, but I'm going to change property to state. So it's a little bit more contextual there because it is a state change. I guess it could be a property change. I don't know. But yeah, so that's pretty much what I'm going to do for that, and I'll hand it off to you.
All right, so I'm going to add more padding here. And again, one thing that is can be frustrating for a developer is there's not usually one good way to solve a problem. And so depending on the designs, you may end up with some replicated code. And I asked around actually before I got on this recording to see if anybody had any other ideas of how they might implement this button, and no one really had any ideas. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to add more padding between our orange button and our black background. So I need to create some new, so we'll call it background. Top padding. Were these all the same? They're not all the same. They are, okay, these are dependent on whether or not the button is pressed or not. So this is when it's going to start to get a little tedious, but that's okay. So I'm going to need.
And by the way, like there's more than one way to design this too. Like we as designers, we could use 2 different rectangles if we wanted to. Like that's totally a feasible thing. But Figma's came out with some updates recently that allows us to apply a stroke of any like width or weight, whatever you want to call it, on any particular side, and we can customize it. And so with that, it's just less layers for us as designers to keep track of if we can just apply different padding to a stroke.
Yeah, this is this is the boring part, like setting up the boilerplate code. And the reason I'm doing this, so I've created this little object at the like up in my file. I've been doing this again. There's like 100 ways to do things like this. In software, if you start creating these, adding these like pixel values in the code, we call them magic numbers.
Mm.
And so you want to avoid magic numbers because if you ever want to change something, it's hard to find every place that it's used. And so what I like to do is I like to create basically a container for all of my constants, and I keep them in one place. And then I try and use these constants whenever I can. So that if we want to change things, I just have to change them in one place.
That seems
All
pretty
right.
smart.
So yeah. So in the case of just the regular button, can you help me run through some of these paddings? I think there's
Yep.
zero padding between, I guess this is the stroke. This is where you're using a stroke and
Yeah.
I'm using padding.
Yep.
So let's do just a regular button state. I think the top is 0.
Yep.
The right and left is 2.
Yep.
And then the bottom is
16.
16. And then in the press state,
Yep.
top
The top is
is
12.
12. And then right and left are 4.
Uh-huh.
And then the bottom is 0.
I have 2.
2. Okay.
But we can make it 0. I don't
No,
know.
no, that's fine. I
Okay.
think you have something selected in Figma, so I can't see the 2. But that's fine.
Oh.
Okay. So, all right, what I'm actually going to do, because those are variable. So I'm going to create some new variables that are horizontal. And CG float here is just a number value that is used in the UI designs of things. It's actually a core graphics is the prefix there.
Okay.
And so is pressed. If it's pressed, we want to use. Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do horizontal because it's the same. I don't need the left padding, but top and bottom will change.
Got it. Makes sense.
And then that's 2 less constants.
Yeah.
Background.
I'm going to go ahead and make my third variant here, which is the disabled state. And there is 0 stroke values. So I'm just going to totally remove the strokes. And I'm just going to change the color to this disabled color style that we made. And that's that. That's all there is for my fancy button variants. And now I can hook this up in my prototype. So this, you can do interactive prototyping in your variant set. So as soon as you hit the prototype panel over there, when you hover over your components, you see these little dots, and you can just pull this little noodle over to this one. And on tap, we want it to change to this one. And we're doing a 300 millisecond ease in and out. And then this one is going to change to disabled after a delay. So like it's pressed, so you can't press something that's already pressed. So we'll do that. And I'm not sure what was I did here, 800 milliseconds for the after delay. So I'm just gonna, it already has that selected, so that's perfect. And then I can pull this down, and we're gonna start another frame here. I think we did the iPhone SE, and I'm just going to change the color of the background so it's not just white to view the prototype. And let's just do like this spark light color. And I'm just going to select this call to action, copy it, and paste it on here. And I'm just going to center it on there. And I'm going to go to the prototype, hit flow starting point, and let's name it fancy button test. And now we can hit play and see if it works. And we hit press. Yeah, there it is. We got our fancy button, And if you're viewing in prototype mode on your own, you can just hit R and it will refresh the prototype and you can just keep pressing it. Now, I've seen this tutorial done for this video. I think it was on Twitter, and I thought it was really cool, but they did it in a way different way. I think it was a little bit better, a lot better than mine. But for the sake of just kind of illustrating an idea I had to share with Jonathan was like to give him an idea of the kind of animation interaction I was thinking of. So it was more or less just like, can you achieve this? I don't know, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think I'm like going back and forth here. Oh, we missed the disabled state. That's the only thing we're missing here.
Okay.
No, but I can show you that. All right, so um, if I press, it looks
Ooh,
like
that's so cool.
now the only funny thing here, personally, I think the animation is a little weird or unexpected, and so I'm going to turn it off, and we
Okay.
can whoops.
I think it looks fun.
And enable. And so
Oh, there you go. Kaboom, kaboom.
I don't know if it's better or worse.
It reminds me of like a keyboard button.
Yeah, yeah. And then down here, this is my preview where I'm testing out these things, so I can create a new button. Disabled button style, and we're fancy button style, and then we can disabled true. A little more spacing here, but that's what it looks like disabled.
Nice.
And then in your demo, did you play the demo where it disables the button afterwards?
I did. So I hit R and I hit tap it. Oh, you know what? Yeah, there it goes. It disabled it. Except I got that border in the color. Maybe it looks better on white. Let me try white and see if that look makes more sense. So let's hit refresh and kaboom. Boop. It's disabled.
Okay. So now what I'm going to do is, so we've created our style here. So this is just basically it's a reusable component. And so now I'm going to go back to our application code, which is pretty boring, but that's okay. World. And then we're going to use disabled toggle. Then we're going to apply our button style, fancy button style. And then what we're going to do, we're going to create another button here that's just a regular old iOS button. You can kind of see the differences here. And then we'll have a reset, and then is disabled. We'll toggle it so we can turn it back on. But we need to wrap this whole thing in some sort of container. And now, if we tap and press and then let go, it's not disabling. It's disabled. Oh, you know what I forgot to do, though?
What?
Forgot to tell it that it was disabled.
Oh, well.
Okay.
Look at that beautiful thing.
There it is.
Yes. Hello, world. I am now disabled.
Nope.
So there we go. Done. Nicely done. Man, that was fast. That was so fast.
Not bad.
Not bad.
Not bad.
Awesome sauce.
Well, hey, it's nice when it works the first time, though. Am I right?
It's amazing. Well, thanks so much for joining me on this little tutorial expedition. I had a lot of fun. I learned an awful lot as well. So.
Yeah, heck yeah. No, it's awesome. It's always great when you can work close with the designers because, you know, if you're doing something stupid, I can, oops, sorry, gotta get the kids off the bus here. If you're doing something stupid, I'm able to tell you right away. But it is interesting in this, the way that I would think to implement it in code versus how you implement it in design. The thing that comes to mind is just using a stroke. instead of a background. Like we can do strokes, but if you just do a stroke, you get 1 pixel width around the whole button. And so if I wanted to change the width of the stroke on each side, what I'd have to do is I'd have to actually manually draw a path and then set the stroke width on the path and then change it and then draw the next path. So in this case, I thought using rectangles was a better choice.
I think it makes
At
sense.
least but yeah, pretty neat.
Very cool, man. I'd love to see it come alive. So that's really cool. And it's, like you said, a reusable component. So it could be reused, anywhere, right? So.
Yeah. Yeah. And one thing that we didn't really touch on, this is just one CTA button, but if you used it in different parts of your app and maybe it needed to be a different color in different places, we could build it in a similar way. Instead of specifying, a color here, a background color here, like we did, you could pass in certain colors, or maybe you have different modes. Like in iOS, you have like a cancel button, or you have like a destructive button. A lot of times the destructive buttons are red. So we could build in certain modes of this button if it was used for different purposes throughout the app too.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Super cool. Well,
Awesome.
we'll have to figure out another thing to make together on the next one.
Heck yeah, man. Sounds good.
All right. Thanks again. I hope everybody has a super fantastic, wonderful day. Peace.
Bye-bye.